Hi, and welcome to the show. Subscribe at kevinmd.com/podcast. Today, we welcome back Lianne Mandelbaum. She's a food allergy advocate and patient advocate. Today's Kevin MD article is Why Hollywood's Allergy Jokes Are Dangerous. Lianne, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Tell us what your latest article is about.
Once again, it's about jokes. I feel like I am saying this over and over and over again, but I really feel that it needs to be repeated till one day it actually becomes concrete that food allergies are a legitimate medical condition. They're not satire, they're not dark or funny comedy, and there are consequences to these types of jokes. So that is my goal here today is to hammer it in. And in fact, when I got the idea for this article, I was actually at a global food allergy conference, mostly medical professionals. It's the Global Food Allergy and Anaphylaxis Forum that took place in Padua, if I'm saying Padua right, Italy. And I was presenting on airlines and the state of airline readiness and epinephrine in public spaces, but there was a little section in my presentation about jokes and the consequences and how the medical professionals in the audience need to be aware that these jokes actually do trickle down into customer service, into other passengers, into airline pilots and staff, belittling the condition and either kicking people off or not taking the necessary precautions. So there is a very real cost to the jokes. And if one more person tells me to grow a sense of humor around this particular topic, I mean, my head might
Mm.
explode.
Now, tell us, recently, have there been anything in the cultural zeitgeist that kind of
Well,
precipitated
yeah,
this?
yeah. So I was on the plane to this conference in Italy, and I was scrolling through my news feed, and there
Mhm.
was an article about a remake of the movie called The Roses. I don't know if you remember
Yeah.
the War of the Roses with
Yes.
that. So in it, the husband tries to kill the wife with a food allergy, and then they even show epinephrine being used finally, but it's in the arm, and it's just completely inappropriate on so many levels. And I was just, sitting there and I'm like, okay, fine, another one. I can't handle this. I'm going on vacation because we were celebrating our 30th anniversary before I went to this conference. So I'm like, I'm just going to table this in the back of my head. I can't take another article like this. And then I was sitting at the conference in Italy and I was listening to a presenter who's the executive director of Food Allergy Canada. And she was talking about two young teenagers in Canada with severe dairy allergies that
Mhm.
died. And she's describing, how difficult it is to live with a dairy allergy because people think it's a sore stomach and it hides everywhere, and the fact that people do think it's a lactose intolerance. And then she described the manner of their deaths, and one of them actually was at a sleepaway camp where a friend of a friend, like before it even hit the news, I had heard that this
Mhm.
person had died. And it just my head involuntarily, while I was supposed to be listening to her presentation, it just went back to that article I had read on the plane. And I'm like, this is what people think is okay for comedy. Like, this is a medical condition. And I feel like we've evolved on so many other medical conditions, especially mainstream, right? Right? Like, you really don't see comedy about diabetes or chemotherapy or, you just don't.
Mhm.
It's not appropriate. So why are we still the Rodney Dangerfield of disease? Uh, It's and then I have to go back and people are like, why are you just so passionate about this? And I met someone at a food allergy lunch in New York one year, and we sat in a corner, and he told me how when his son died from a food allergy, it was a mistake that they had gotten like a Harry and David or some
Yeah.
company like that. The parents had put out the tray on the island of the kitchen. All the cousins were running by, and everybody grabbed a piece of this what looked like cake. And there was something that that child was allergic to, and didn't have an auto injector. And the father told me that he sat there and felt his son's heart stop as they were
Mhm.
waiting for the paramedics. And it just doesn't leave you. And and then again in that article, the family of Natasha Edna and LaPerouse, who have since formed a foundation, she died of anaphylaxis on a plane. they once again have to come up and go to the media and say, this is not right. We lost a child. There's nothing funny about this. They changed all the labeling laws. Food allergies are not taken seriously. Before that, the labeling was incomplete, and she did die from the fact that labeling was not, accurate
Hmm.
or done in the way that it is done now in the UK, because sesame, which she was allergic to, was a top allergen that was supposed to be labeled in the UK, but there were these loopholes. And this particular airport shop took advantage of the loophole. And so even though there was sesame in there, it wasn't required to be labeled, which is not the case now in the UK. But they to have it made fun of over and over again, and for grieving, and that's what happens here too, right? We have the grieving families that come forward and say there's nothing funny. We need to support these grieving families.
Hmm.
These consequences of comedy, they're not abstract. It teaches people, whether they're in your workplace or school, whether you're an adult or a child, that it's okay to laugh at your condition, that it's okay to bully you with the allergen. And a great example of this is there was a football player in Texas who's since switched schools, and he's a good football player. We're not talking
Hmm.
about this, not that it would make it right if he wasn't a good football player, but he was a very valued member of the team, and they thought it would be hysterical to fill his locker with peanuts and his helmet and everything, and there were no consequences. It because I he had to switch schools. I mean, but you get jokes and you think it's funny, and you think it's okay to laugh on a plane, on the ground, in a restaurant. And there are real people that
Hmm.
suffer the consequences. There's a real burden that's being increased by these jokes. And I want physicians and the greater public to know that you can lessen this burden by not laughing at the jokes, by educating people that it's not funny, because it's not funny.
So you've been on, of course, in the past, and we've talked about things like Saturday Night Live, about making light of food allergies. So why is it that the entertainment industry doesn't seem to respond? Why does this message fall on deaf ears, especially in the entertainment industry?
I I I think part of it is that there's not outrage from people who treat. Sometimes they'll issue like a little statement, but there's not outrage from like a coalition, perhaps, of medical professionals that deal with this subset of patients saying it's not okay to make fun of. I don't know if that's part of it. Food allergies are visible. That's definitely part of it. So you don't see anaphylaxis until it happens. And even a long time ago, I was at a birthday party. Josh was small. They were handing out cups of cereal, and it was a brand that it was like a little snack. They were doing like music time, and I saw the box from far away, and it was a box that he had eaten at home, so I wasn't worried about it. And then I got close and I realized it was a holiday mix because it was close to the
Mhm.
holidays. And I turned the box, I took the box, I don't know, I had a spidey sense in my head, and I took the box out of the garbage, and it said may contain peanuts. And I'm having a little bit of a heart attack. And at the time, our plan was like, if you don't know he's been exposed, or you could give Benadryl, which of
Mhm.
course is not the right thing that I would tell anyone now. And then, so I gave him the Benadryl. I'm watching him like a hawk. And the other mothers, I could hear her. They're like talking about me, like she's paranoid. Maybe it's her. Maybe he doesn't have an allergy. But turns out when I got in touch with the company, it's made on the same line. So it may have had something in it. That's why the warning was there. It didn't actually have his allergen. But had it had his allergen, or had the line been contaminated, he could have had a very severe reaction. And so we face this disbelief everywhere, from preschool to colleagues at work. Because food is ubiquitous and food is everywhere. From the time you're born, you celebrate with food. And when you have a funeral,
Mhm.
you celebrate with food. I mean, food is just in every occasion. So it just shows up everywhere. And I want to give you an example. I actually put this on my phone this morning because I saw it and I wanted to read an example of a tweet that I picked up about the jokes having consequences. So this is what this person said. When I was on a Delta flight and before boarding, they announced that there was a passenger with a peanut allergy. I went to the airport shop and bought a bag of peanuts. And during the flight, I made sure to walk up and down the aisle eating peanuts, so tired of crier loser babies. And people will say it's X, it's social media, people say things, but then they don't do it. But they do it because I take these testimonials, I collect them, of people being mocked by airline staff, mocked by other passengers, hearing people laugh about that peanut allergy or tree nut allergy, announcement that has
Hmm.
been made and then tagging a comedian. I pick up those tweets all the time too. Like, I am laughing out loud. I just thought of your comedy skit, and it's like in real life. And of course, when you laugh, you don't pay attention, or you try to see like this man, and nothing happens. But here's the problem: we don't know when it's going to happen. Like food allergies aren't predictable. It's not
Hmm.
like every time you're exposed to your allergen, even the same amount, you'll have the same reaction. There are these things called cofactors. And so you could have been tired. That increases your threshold to anaphylaxis. You could have taken an Advil. That increases your threshold to anaphylaxis. You could have been running up and down.
Hmm.
That increases your threshold. There's so many cofactors that, just because you didn't react this time doesn't mean you won't react next time. And you're not getting one up on us by saying, oh, I was sitting behind that child and I cracked peanuts the whole time
Yeah.
and the child was fine. It's in the mother's head. And you hear things like that all the time. And I think it's actually worse for young adults. So I had a 6'4" football player, asked to pre-board because he's violently allergic to tree nuts, and American Airlines serves tree nuts. So he knows the seat he's going to is going to have traces, right? Because people are slobs.
Hmm.
And so he wants to pre-board to clean his area. That's taking personal responsibility. And the crew made fun of him because he just looked so healthy and fit and he had the football jersey on, and they wouldn't let him on. We had to file a complaint with DOT, which is still outstanding, but it's not right. It's not just children, it's adults. And I think it's actually worse for adults. And I think this is when you get people hiding the condition because they think people are going to laugh.
Now, for someone listening to this show who does not have food allergies, what would you say is an important action they can take when they see allergies being mocked?
Well, if they don't have food allergies, I would love them to realize that food allergies are invisible. They're not a choice, and they can kill within minutes. In fact, Allergic Living just did a piece on a young man who went on a hockey trip, had a snack, allergic to cashews, snack had the cashew in it, and he had forgotten his auto injector. He died within 15 minutes. So paramedics could not get there in time. And the mom, when she walked into his room, on his dresser was his auto injector, like set out to pack, but he had not packed. It's not funny. We're not perfect because no humans are perfect. Things happen. And I would ask you just to put yourself in the shoes of that mother and anyone else who has to care for someone, whether it's a spouse, whether it's a
Mhm.
child, whether it's yourself, and try to put yourself in that situation and see that it's not funny. Natasha's father watching her die on the plane, like put yourself in that. And when somebody laughs, just say, I really don't think that's funny, and this is why. And I actually think, again, we've written about this. I've written about this a lot, and you and I have talked about it, that the way to counter these jokes and counter bad speech is with good speech. So we need to educate. We need to like not, I mean, I'm not up here screaming and crying and trying to ban comedians. I want people to take a second look at why other diseases get respect and
Mhm.
food allergies are still on the drawing board for these comedic sketches. And not only that, like, this is not the first time we've seen the EpiPen being injected in the arm. In fact, one of the earliest examples I found about this is Al Roker was on the Today Show. I'm watching it, and he walks into a candy store. It's like that has the biggest candy cane in the world in it, or something. And he walks up to a row of nuts. I'll never forget it. And he goes, "Oh, EpiPen me now!" And he sticks like it's going in his arm. And, he has a child with diabetes. Would it be funny to say, like, oh, I'm going into a diabetic coma now? I don't think so. You wouldn't say it. So why is it okay to make fun of people with nut allergies when they go into a candy store? I've never understood it. And that's what I'm saying. It's not in the deep, dark corners of dark humor and like dark comedy sellers. This is mainstream television, the Today Show. It's movies that are in the theater. It's Peter Rabbit. It's children's films also make fun of anaphylaxis, and there's just nothing funny. And I think when we stop laughing and we
Mhm.
object, maybe they will realize they're not getting the laughs they want and write different stories. Again, not about censorship, but about good conversation and education. Because one of the things comedy does for almost everything else they talk about is they promote discussion on how to do better. But for food allergies, it's like, how can we do worse? Like, how can
Mhm.
we increase the stigma? How can we like make the laughs even funnier? And that is what happens, unfortunately, when you see bullying in children. And there are a lot of medical studies that have been done that show that, this does happen.
We're talking to Lianne Mandelbaum. She is a leading advocate for airline safety measures to protect food allergy passengers. Today's Kevin MD article is Why Hollywood's Allergy Jokes Are Dangerous. Leanne, let's end with some take home messages that you want to leave with the Kevin MD audience.
Try to be kind to people who have food allergies. They're not trying to inconvenience you. They shouldn't be the butt of your jokes. It's really hard when food is all around you. It's not purposeful in any way to diminish other people's celebrations, and it's not funny. Try not to laugh. Try to educate people. Try to, if you are in a medical association, try to get your members aware that this is happening and that it's not okay. And when you see it on TV, write a letter.
Hmm.
Maybe it'll go in the dustbin, maybe it won't. But write a letter, speak up, object that humor is it really funny when humor is so hurtful and really can lead to things like putting peanuts in someone's locker. We're just lucky he didn't die. Or his, it's just we're this close. And it's not okay. It's not okay to feel your child's heart stop. It's not okay to die on a plane. It's not okay to be laughed at. It's not okay to be kicked off. And just have a little more empathy and compassion. They shouldn't go out the window when we travel, when we're at school. We're just trying to live life like everybody else. And we're not trying to do anything to take away your fun. We're really not.
Leanne, thank you again for sharing your perspective and insight. Thanks again for coming back on the show.
Thank you, Kevin.